Hi everyone, my name is Sankey and today I'm coming back with another tongue blocking exercise where we're starting to bring all the different things we've been talking about over the last 8 or 9 videos on tongue blocking together. So today I've got a really cool exercise for you which we're going to start quite simply and then we're going to add layers of complexity and it can be quite challenging for a kind of intermediate and even an advanced player actually. We're going to be using an A harmonica, A diatonic harmonica, in third position, which is a fantastic key for learning tongue blocking, fantastic position rather for learning tongue blocking. And what I'm going to do, I'll play through the kind of basic form of the exercise and then we'll break it down and go through it in detail. So it sounds like this. So that's the basic exercise, which essentially is a really simple horn type riff which sets up a pulse, and then we've got a scale going up and down the harmonica, and that is tongue blocked going up and down the scale. The anchor rhythm is tongue blocked using a kind of octave, but then we've got some other little flourishes and moved, some of which are lip pursed. Now if you practice this, it's going to help you improve your timing. It's a really great way of sort of adapting and using something to make your own licks, and it's really going to improve your tongue blocking and the use of it. So let's sort of run through it in detail. And then what we're going to do, once we've got that basic thing, we're going to start overlaying some complexity, as I said. And then I'm going to upload another video which takes it up another level or introduces something else. So the pulse, the basic rhythm is using the draw 4 octave. And it's kind of setting up a kind of shuffle type rhythm. Really simple, a beginner or an intermediate player, no problem. Then what we can do, and this is some thinking to apply to your playing in general, and it's something the pros are doing, is you can throw in little touches and little moves, I've spoken about this before, little details which allow you to break the monotony of that riff, and it's a great thing to do when you're backing or especially in your solos. So the first little thing you can do to give some variation is just to throw in a blow 4. So we've got the draw 4 octave and we just throw in a blow 4. It sounds like this. Really easy. The other thing you can do is you can use a draw 3 full step bend rising up and then to the draw 4. Now the way we're doing this based on the sort of path we've taken so far learning to tongue block is that draw 3 full step bend rising up. You can play that lip pursed because doing tongue block bends on the bottom part of the harmonica is quite tricky. So if you're able to do that, fine, but if you're a lip purser who's just sort of tinkering around and learning to use tongue blocking more and more, then just lip purse that bend and switch to tongue blocking for the 4, draw 4, which we've talked about before. So it sounds like this. So, and again, context of the pulse. So that's another variation. Third variation you can throw in there, which is really good, which is a very common lick or move in third position, is to come from the draw 1, draw 2, full step bend, upper half step to the draw 2 half step bend, and then switch to tongue blocking on the draw 4. It sounds like this. First 3 notes lip pursed and then switch to tongue blocking. And you can throw that in here. It sounds great. So with those three elements, you can start doing some variations and keeping that pulse interesting. Then we sort of get to the meat of the exercise, which is really this tongue block scale going up and then going down. So once again, it sounds like this. So the notes are draw 4, draw 5, blow 6, draw 6, blow 7, draw 8. And we're double tapping the last note each time. So that's the draw 8 when you get to the top and all the draw 4 when you get down. So, and the same when you go down. So you have the pulse and then you run and you hit that. Really pretty simple, but great to practice. Now the key thing here is I'd actually sort of recommend also doing this lip pursed, even if you're a tongue block player. But if you're still not convinced about the power of tongue blocking, I think this is another exercise, another example of one of the great advantages of tongue blocking, which is how you can connect and develop and bring each note in. So we have this technique of tongue slapping, I think people call it, which is where you bring the note in. It's almost like it's slightly out of focus, slightly blurred, and then you bring it into focus. Sounds like this. So it's that little rushing of air. So what you're doing is, as the breath starts, the block, the seal, isn't fully formed. This is a bit of and you get that rushing as the tongue comes in and creates the seal against the holes that you want to block. So that, you can do that lip pursing, but as you move up the harmonica, as I've talked about before, it doesn't work so well. Now when I learned to start using this technique, it completely transformed my relationship with the harmonica, as I said before. So this is a great exercise for practicing this. So when you're going up the scale, really think about the way that you're attacking and bringing those notes in. So your one option is to do it vanilla, I suppose. So as you start breathing in, the note starts straight away, which sounds like this. There's no rush of air, there's no focusing. Or you have this thing where you're playing with the embouchure. Or you have a thing where you play around with the embouchure, as I said, which sounds like this. So experiment with both. The next thing we can do is we can start doubling each note up and down, and then we can start tripling each note up and down, which is a really good exercise to do. So doubling, then tripling, Now when you're going for those double and triple notes, or indeed single notes, you've got two main options, which then kind of branches out into kind of sub options and techniques of how you trigger each note. So you can either articulate each note using the throat, or you can use your mouth and tongue in some way to create the action, like hitting the piano key. So using the triple notes as an example, you can either use the throat, which would sound like this, that's coming through the throat. Or you can use the tongue, in this case, for... So it's good, or indeed essential, to practice both within this framework, and the same applies for the double. So are you using the throat? Are you using the tongue? Is it controlled? Is it swinging? Is it in the pocket? You know, you think about, you know, Big Walter Horton, William Clark, you know, the way that they do those riffs. Really controlled, really strong, and this is a great way of practicing that. So we've got this pulse rhythm, and then we've got the scale going up and down. Great practice, third position. And by going single, double, triple notes up and down, you're building in that complexity and control. So there's one other thing I want to throw in here, which intermediate and even advanced players will struggle with, and I'll probably cock it up as I'm explaining it. And that is something Jason Ritchie's talked about many times, is you're keeping a pulse going with your scale, but then you're going between each note, doubling backwards and forwards, and to do that up and down. Now I find going up pretty easy, but coming down is still requires practice and is still a bit messy sometimes. But so what I'm talking about here is going... to do that to the rhythm. So that's can be quite testing when you've got that pulse going. So you're just going between each note. Now the transition, where you'll probably find it quite difficult on the way up and down, is that draw 8, blow 7 transition around here. That one, to do that flows, is quite tricky because it's not an area or a way of moving it through the harmonica that people do very often. So laying those two things together, the double notes, triple notes, single notes, and going backwards and forwards, you can then get some really cool variations. So one example, keep the pulse going, double up the notes on the way up, and then do double notes on the way down, but not moving backwards and forwards. So it sounds like this. So there's lots of different combinations. You can take those exercises and build your own sort of practice routine. But the key thing is you're using that tongue blocking, you're keeping the pulse going, and you're using lip pursing on that real bottom end of the harp if you want to throw in those other transitions. But the key meat of the exercise is around, and in the next video we'll start throwing in some other variations. There's this cool little riff. So we'll get into that in the next video. Hope you found that useful. Thanks for all the comments and support and subscriptions, etc., etc., and thank you very much.